Oh, the lights are really bright up here. I could barely even see out. I didn't think that they're that bright. But like John said, I'm Kris Poulson, owner of North Country Ag Services. We're the company that helps you make sense of the data that comes off of these UAVs, as well as some other farmer data. Give you a little background on myself. Grew up on a family farm just outside of Castleton, North Dakota. Attended NDSU, got a degree in agriculture economics. Went back to the family farm. Did that, also sell Pioneer seed with my dad. Started a crop insurance agency that I still operate today. Then I got approached by a larger company called Farm Intelligence to offer the services I'm going to talk to you about today. Really liked it. They worked really well on our own farm. So we brought it on in a larger capacity, and I started a business called North Country Ag Services, which I'm going to talk to you guys about today. But this is a small enough group. I think I'll just leave it open. We'll just leave it open forum as I'm talking. If you have questions, shout them out. I'll just take them as we go. I think that that'd probably be easier as we go. But any questions before we start? Because John went through some stuff that was fairly complex. He was pretty thorough. All right. Give a little, Give a little background on what our company really does. So one aspect of our business is we bring in UAV data, so imagery coming off of a UAV to process and analyze. We're an analytical company for farmers, so we'll also bring in some farmer data and help give them decisions. Our inputs, like I said, crop status from a UAV, as well as we're bringing in some other information. You're going to notice that throughout this presentation, you'll see things called wing scan in the upper right-hand corner. If you partner with our company, that's the product that you buy. It's our online application. You'll also see the term Farm Intelligence. That's my parent company who does the data process and analysis for me. We're also bringing in some information for you, CLU, NAPE, soils, NDVI right off of the UAV, and weather information. So we're tracking weather on a so many bile by so many bile basis, fairly similar to the Weather Corp. Also some things that you'll see is we bring in some farmer data, as planted, fertility, other operations might be tile, if you have tile maps, yield information, so harvest records. Our outputs as a company are decisions. So what do we give you? We don't give you just pretty pictures. These UAVs fly, they take a lot of imagery, but what do you do with it? We geo-rectify the images, which is just a fancy way of saying we stitch the imagery together to make one perfect image. We put it up on our online application that you can zoom in on it. You can get 3D capability. The next piece is in-season analysis, so proactive alerts that come via your text message to your smartphone. The piece down from that is everything that we do, we can export via shapefile. So if we give you a stand report, so one thing that we could do with our company is we could fly over your field, scan the whole entire thing, and give you an exact stand that's in your field. Not random samples, but every single plant that's out there and where they're at. Exportable via shapefile to plug into prescription variable rate type applications, seeding, fertilizing, chemicals, what have you. We also give you in-season reports. So what's going on right now, as well as post-season reports. So who are we? We're the data processing company up in the cloud. We import all of the farmer data and some crop status data, analyze it, store it, give it to the farmers. We have an online application, so anywhere in the world that you have internet access, you have access to your information. So, yeah.
Just to follow that up, who owns the data then at that point?
That is a great question. I thought that was going to be the first one asked. Our company has a unique perspective that it's the farmer's data, and we actually enter into a contract with the farmer at the beginning of the season that states that it's his data. We don't keep it. We don't use it in any format that's not anonymous from that point on. If you get off of our services, we actually give you an SD card or a different format depending on how many files you have, and we give it back to you because we hope to get you back someday, and we get you off the system like you never existed, so we need that to put it back on. There's some other people out there that feel that if they're giving you a service that they own the data, and that's not our perspective. Any other questions so far? Basically, I just gave a background on the company. Now I'm going to kind of show you what we can really do. All right. So here's some examples of the imagery that we can capture with a UAV type technology. Imagery is quite good. You could see residue in between the rows. You could see weeds in between the rows. In the lower right-hand corner, or left-hand corner, excuse me, you could see wheel tracks from a sprayer. And in the lower right-hand corner, that's NDVI off of satellites to give you a comparison, and we'll give you both. This next image is that exact same image, but zoomed in. So now you can see weeds in between the rows there in the corn. You can almost count, and actually you can count each individual corn plant. In the upper right-hand corner, do you guys see all those little green dots in a row? Someone tell me what they think that is. Soybeans. That's the cotyledon stage. Literally is just poking out of the ground. That's the type of imagery we're striving to capture with UAVs. So that's all great. Really powerful information. You could tell a lot just from imagery. Things that you can tell from imagery would be tile detection, drainage issues, operator error, so on and so forth. Where our company is distinguishing itself from our competitors and other people out in the marketplace is we're building algorithms and software to analyze what the picture is telling us. We're not giving you pretty pictures, we're giving you decisions. So what I really mean by that is we're developing portfolios of optical signatures. And an optical signature, if you're not familiar with the term, I think of it like a fingerprint. I have a fingerprint to distinguish myself from Greg. Greg has a fingerprint to distinguish himself from John. Each plant has a fingerprint. Each weed has a fingerprint. Each disease has a fingerprint. If we can identify what that is, we can tell you in real time that you have a problem. So here's two examples. Fusarium and Phytophthora, two root rots. We know what their fingerprints are today. We could tell you in real time that you have that problem. We just have to ground truth it on a whole field level. And the way that we're doing that is if you see up there in that rectangle where it says visible, that's the visible range of light. So red, green, blues, what you and I can see today. That's all we can see. But we can measure all of those other wavelengths up there. That's where we're building our portfolio for optical signatures. A gentleman within our company invested in a Houston-based company, and what they are doing is developing optical signatures for the medical field. And you have to excuse me, I have a cold, so I might have to grab a drink of water here in a second. But what they can do through optical signatures in the medical field is detect bed sores 4 days before the human eye can see them. That's what we're striving to do in plants. We're not that good today, but we're going to get there sometime here in the near future. Today, when there's problems in plants, we could let you know in real time, but we want to strive to be able to tell you, hey, Farmer Johnson, in 4 days, you're going to have nitrogen deficiency. You should go do something about that. That's where this technology is really going. So I talked about giving you timely alerts. This is an alert that we could do today. So who in the room has a cell phone? Okay, I do not believe half the people in this room don't have a cell phone. Come on. Okay, everyone in this room probably has a cell phone. Picture this as being your most valuable tool on your farm, and I'm going to explain how it's going to be. So with our company, if you have a problem in your field, we send you an alert. It comes via text message and or email to your smartphone or whatever you want. So what I always tell farmers is this is a real-time alert. Picture yourself sitting in the soybean planter, and this comes. What it says is a stand watch has been issued for your field due to a detection of a non-uniform emergence in a low stand. Analysis resulted from an inspection at 10:23. You'll notice that we turned this around in about an hour. Turnaround time really depends on when we upload the information. We have a guaranteed turnaround time in 2 days or less. So picture yourself planting soybeans. You got a day left to finish. They're talking rain. All of a sudden, beep, beep, beep. You look at your cell phone. You see this alert, and you're like, shoot. What's most farmers going to do? They're going to ignore it, and they're going to keep planting soybeans. But that's why you put this notify supplier button, lower left-hand corner. What you do is you click on that, and it pops up a list of people you can email. It could be your crop consultant. It could be your partner. It could be whoever. They get this alert, whatever message you want to type them, 2 images. One zoomed out and one zoomed in into the problem area, and a latitude, longitude associated with the center of that problem area. So now they know what they're looking at before they get there and exactly where to go. saving them time and money, and saving you time and money. You don't have to go look. Plus, they're not going to be damaging your crop with a four-wheeler trying to find the problem. So he could call you back and say, yeah, Farmer Johnson, shut down, you have to come over here, or keep planting, you're good to go. That's what I mean by in-season alerts. That's a really good question. If you're on our service, there's numerous packages that you could pick, but roughly bi-weekly through the growing season is how often we scan. Or if a farmer owns a UAV and they want to scan their own fields, it's whenever you want. We'll process as much data for one flat fee. And there was another question, there was two parts to that. Did I answer both?
Yeah, so you're using satellites and UAV?
We're trying to utilize as much of the UAV technology as we can, but we can also analyze satellites, but we prefer not to, because the information isn't as timely and as accurate.
So you're flying over all your clients' fields?
Or the farmers are, or whatever regiment that they decide, yeah.
What's the accuracy difference between a UAV and the satellite imageries that you're getting?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I don't know if I can give you a real great answer. Our accuracy level today is a meter worth of resolution on the soil surface if we're at 400 feet. The lower we go, the better it gets. Next year, we're actually developing technology. We're going to be 5 centimeters worth of accurate on the soil surface at 400 feet. I'm not sure, maybe John knows what it is from a satellite. I know that it isn't quite that great a resolution, but the big difference between the two, it's 5 meters with a satellite, John says. But the big difference between the two is cloud cover and storms. If it's cloudy, satellite flies over once a week, maybe it's every other week, they get nothing. We're flying underneath the cloud cover. We could pick the days we want to fly, and we're right there. It's timely, and it's closer to the soil surface, which is giving you better information. Good questions. Anyone else? I just have a couple more slides.
How much territory can you cover in a day with customer service? Can you do a township in a day, for example?
No. But you could maybe do 1,800 acres in a day with one UAV, the ones that we're utilizing. You would need quite the fleet to accomplish what you have to do with the UAVs that we're using today.
About how many passes at 400 feet for a quarter section?
You're going to be quarter section. That's a really good question. A section 65. And that's not, that would be one way, not a round. It'd be like 33 rounds. We could do about a section an hour is what we're accomplishing. Did that answer your question, Kevin? Perfect.
What's the wind tolerance? Talk about flying over clouds, but a little thing like that, in our winds.
Yeah, we have ours tested up to 25 miles an hour. And we're grasping pretty good stuff. But the big thing that up until about a month ago, I thought the imagery was the most important part of the piece, or part of the puzzle, and it's not. We actually developed what's called computer vision, or we didn't develop it, we're utilizing it. And the imagery could be quite poor, but you just apply the right filter via computers, and it cleans it up really nice. So viewing it cosmetically doesn't exactly look the best, but we can get really good analysis off of it. Yeah. I didn't catch that.
Basic plan was to charge you.
Oh, if you would go, our best package is $10 an acre, and it's only down from there. And that's literally, you get everything for the whole season, all the data storage. And I'm going to walk through that, and I'm going to show you the app and a couple examples of some reports. I know this clock is ticking at me that I have to hurry up, so. Anything else?
Will you be able to upload data from the planter, the field sprayer, all that type of stuff? So we get back in that who owns the data. If the grower can upload all that data to you, it stays with him.
Absolutely. And we store it for them. So anything you want to give us that is driven off of monitors in tractors, minus spraying right now, which we're trying to incorporate, we can store. But we should be able to store spraying records by spraying season. So. Yeah, we actually bring that in for free for you. But if you have Veris, if that's what you're talking about, we're working right now to be able to upload Veris maps. but we actually, if you don't have soil records, we pull those in off of the NRCS, so you have them. They're more of a guideline than a rule, but they're in there. And I'm going to show you how that piece is going to help us figure out some issues. Yeah.
Roundup resistant weeds, do you have a algorithm or a program for that after somebody sprays? Can you check if the weeds are dying?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. We were working on that, and we abandoned that. And the reason why is this. It's not that we couldn't do it. It was, we got to the point where if we can identify the weeds, and then just 2 weeks after you sprayed, just tell you that that specific weed didn't die, is easier than telling you that if it was Roundup resistant and figuring that out. And it really gives you the same information to make the same decisions. So we did that because lower hanging fruit, basically.
Chris, but in that situation, 4 days after application, or even 3 days, your infrared would be able to tell if that plant's going to survive. Then you go have to go off and treat it, not treat it or whatever.
Absolutely, yep. I just have a few more slides. Should I buzz through them, or are there any more questions? Great questions, wow. So I talk about our app. This is the app. We layer your data. Currently today, if you had planting records, harvest records, soils maps, you spread it out over a table and try to figure out what happened. We stack it like this within our application, and our application is push button easy. I showed a 72-year-old gentleman how to run our app in less than a half hour. I had to get him on a free email account because you need email to be on our services. So I set him up on a free Yahoo email account. Took me longer to explain that to him than it did our app. So on the left-hand side, you'll see it says aphids, it says as planted, wing scan, stuff like that. You click a button, that layer shows up. You unclick it, it disappears. We stack the layers on top of each other. The top layer says aphids, which is semi-misleading because we don't have that capability yet today. We're working on it, and it's coming fairly quickly, but it's not quite functional today. Picture that being harvest data. Second layer is as planted. The third layer is NDVI, so plant health, or near infrared like John talked about. Fourth layer is just the imagery that we flew. And then that was a great question in the back. I'm going to use that. Picture the bottom layer being soils. It's not, but for this example, that's a good example to use. Within the app, if you click on the plane, zooms up to the top, you can zoom down through each layer to help distinguish what problems are. So red means it didn't yield so good. You go to one of those points, zoom down, the next layer, you know what was planted. The next layer, you know what the plant health was. The next layer is the imagery, so maybe it was a drainage issue. Maybe a tile line's plugged, maybe it was aphids. The next layer down, soils, by that gentleman's example. Maybe all those red dots on the harvest map represent a specific soil type. So now you know that the hybrid that was planted wasn't suitable for that soil type. Quick glance, able to distinguish what problems are and make in-season changes to help your operation. So that's all great, and it's push button easy, but we also take it a step further and give you in-season reports as well as post-season reports. And here's an example of one here. On the left-hand side, this whole report is one field, so Howard's West, and this is dummy data, so take it with a grain of salt. On the left-hand side, it's residue cover. We can detect through reflectance what the residue cover is on the soil surface, less than 10%. Next category down is 10 to 20. The next category down is greater than 20. The next category over, acres within the field associated with that residue cover, which is really cool. The next piece beyond that is when I mentioned at the beginning that we could tell you what your stand is in a field. This is where that comes into play. We tell you how many plants that you lost based off of what you shot for. And if I had a pointer, it'd be so much easier, but at the bottom, we actually pull in your as planted, and this individual shot it for 33,000. We're telling him how many plants he lost based off of residue. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. John, you don't want to point for me? Oh, I can do it. Perfect. Do you guys mind if I sit down here so I can point back? Makes it a little easier. I'll point at just one screen if the screen pops back up. Okay, so residue, acres, plants lost, how many plants fell within a gap 4 feet or greater, And then we give you roughly what you lost for bushels based off of how many plants that you lost. Big assumption we're assuming there is every 1,000 plants lost is 4 bushels. That was research done by Iowa State, and I could give you what we're basing that off of. Capable of doing that today. Next piece here, we're going to be capable of doing sometime during the course of growing season 2014. We're actually starting at V3, able to tell you what your cob development's going to be based off of plant mass and emergence. Also research done by Iowa State, and we could tell you how many % of plants are associated with each cob. Boss is a large cob, laggard emerged a couple days later, medium-sized cob, and a runt is going to be a weed or a very small cob, emerged 5+ days later. Then we give you a running average of what we assume your yield's going to be. We actually used this report on our own farm this last year. Excuse me. We split a half section 2 falls ago with tillage. So planted corn, harvested it, deep ripped every other pass, and then came back in and filled it in where we chisel plowed. This year we planted soybeans, 4 bushels to the acre difference, where we deep ripped versus where we didn't deep rip. So in our heavy type soils, it really paid to deep rip. So we looked at this information, used the report to analyze a problem on our own farm, and make a decision that's going to make us more money. Yield monitors. Everything that we show is estimates throughout the course of the year. I mean, I wouldn't sell grain based off of this because they're estimates, but at the end, we correlate it all back to your yield information and tell you how you actually did. And we made our decision based off the end result. Another report that we have and that we used on our own farm is this report here. And actually, I think my equipment sales guy's in the room, so plug him. But this is compaction. We can tell you how you're yielding and your crop is developing behind the wings or on the wings versus behind the planter. And we could pull that out. That's what this report's telling you, how many plants that you lost. We backfed, because we just got this capability last fall, one of our half sections into corn, and we were losing 14 bushels to the acre behind the planter. Well, we just ditched the John Deere planter and bought a Titan-built planter to reduce the compaction or our fingerprint right behind the wheels of the tractor to accomplish some of those bushels back. And the last one, this is where I think the rubber really meets the road, probably because I'm in seed sales, but every once in a while you'll hear a farmer tell you, I can't grow that variety anymore or that hybrid because it lost by 5 bushels. You know, it probably did, but why? Maybe on this field, which it breaks it down, it's still a whole field, it breaks it down by soil type. 2 different hybrids, so it was split planted. On the lion's share of the acres, which happens to be the clay, maybe the variety that I sold them was losing by 5 bushels or 15 bushels or whatever the number is. And down here, on the very small portion of the acres, the 4-8 acres, so the loams, we were winning by 10 to 12. Well, if the majority of his acres happen to be loam across his whole entire farm, instead of getting rid of a good hybrid, hopefully he'll keep it in his lineup. And this also gives farmers decision-making capability independent from seed companies, because we're not owned by a seed company, we're not associated with a seed company. You get this information to help you make the best decisions for your own farm. Excuse me. Plus, we collaborate data from your own geography and tell you which hybrids are doing best based off of soil type as well, as another report that we could generate. And I'm really starting to lose my voice, but that was the last slide. And I'll open it up for questions. Plus, I have my contact information here. We're always looking for new customers and new people to distribute our product, so feel free to jot that down. And I'll open it up for questions for me or John now. So. Yeah, it's a good question. The question was, is there a minimum amount of acres that a person can sign up on? Not really. You know, we really prefer like a short quarter, 100 acres plus, just because setup time, tear down time, and being able to get places, you want a good chunk of something to be able to fly.
What are our options then if we don't have a UAV? Is that provided by your service?
Yeah, we do have a service where we partner with farmers and accomplish that for you. Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Yep. It'd be custom hire on the farm. It depends on how many flights, but let's just say you do 7. We're like at a $4 total. 7 flights for $4 per acre. Yeah, I'm gonna go back. I don't know if I had this slide in there. Probably didn't. If you see the problem area map, that's actually gridded on a 1/10 of an acre basis. We could break that down to an acre by acre basis. Those are squares. If you click on the square, we tell you what you have in there for a population and stand. We could tell you if there's another issue in there. All that's exportable via shapefiles, but you have to plug it into a different application to build a zone off of it. Like an Apex, you could do SMS, SST. They are shapefiles, yep. And everything, we're compatible with all the major players.
Chris, you want to explain what CLU and NAPE that is?
Yep, CLU is common land units, so that's what you report to the FSA. All that's based off of CLUs. NAPE, the figure Google Images is pretty much NAPE imagery.
How about as far as imaging after a hailstorm, as far as being able to deal, since you said you deal with crop insurance,
Mhm.
is that something that you see the insurance industry being able to adopt and an advantage for growers to have the program?
Yeah, absolutely. Within our application, we have a couple of tools. One of them is, let's just say a hailstorm or a windstorm came through, knocked down X amount of acres. You click on that image that I showed you within our app, or the upper right-hand corner where it says a view. If you click on that, it's usually a little bit more zoomed in, but it'll tell you how many acres were actually affected by a certain peril. One thing that we do with hail, this still needs to be tested a little bit, but we could tell you what your canopy cover is, and if we knew what that was prior to the storm and then after, we could roughly tell you what the damage was. We don't give you a percentage today, but it's something we're working on.
How about as far as a color image of the field? You know, you got the different near infrareds, all that type of stuff, but if I want just a color image so I can look at lodging or those type things separate from the other images.
Yeah, and that's something we offer as well. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you ground truth your yield estimates on this tool compared to your yield monitor?
No, the estimation part, we got that capability in the fall. So a lot of the stuff that we analyze, we backfilled in for that we flew over the summer. So this is gonna be our first full summer that we're doing estimations. And there's people within the company that think it's really accurate. I'm not willing to say that. I think that take it with a grain of salt, try it for a year or two, and if it proves to be fairly accurate, well then great, but if not, it's just really more of a tool to show you that you're losing something, more so than giving you an actual numerical value that's out there, because your crop never gets any better than when it first emerges, usually, and you only lose from there. We're trying to give you points in the season to give you information to help preserve your stand and help preserve that yield and shift your yields upward and your APHs across your farm. Absolutely. He asked if we could clean up his yield data, and I'm assuming you mean import it into our system and clean it up for the previous X amount of years. And the answer to that question is yes. We could go back easily 5 to 6. Once you get past that, depending on the formatting of what the information is, it's hit or miss if we can incorporate that, but we can at least go back that many years. One gentleman went back 10 years, and we were able to bring it all in. Yeah, and I'll take like one more because we're out of time. Yeah. You know, yeah, the nitrogen management aspect of it right now is we're working really hard at it, and I can't tell you when it's going to come out for sure because there's a 4-step process that we go through. It's ground truthing in a very controlled environment like greenhouses, rolled out to whole our plot locations where there's someone with a clipboard benchmarking all this stuff. If it still works there, roll out to whole farm locations. We still ground truth it there. If it still passes the eye test, then we roll it out for general availability, and it hasn't passed a certain stage for general availability yet, so I can't give you a time frame on it. Thanks, guys.